Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest away days preview. Rovers heading to Burton Albion in Sky Bet League One this weekend. Joining me to look ahead to that one, Rovers goalkeeper Lewis Jones and editor of the Doncaster Free Press, Liam Hoden. Lewis, firstly, after a night on Tuesday that started so well and just with decisions going against us, fell apart really, didn't it? What's the mood been like in camp following on from that?
Yeah, I think, like you say, you look at probably the first half an hour of the game. We should be, if we take our chances, we should be in control of the game. And I think you look at the last two games before that, we're starting to build on each game. Obviously, like you say, decisions went against us, and the game changes ultimately because of that. But I think if you look at the first half an hour and how we're progressing, there's definitely something that we're building and working on.
What's it like in a game like that? For a goalkeeper in particular, you look at the first two goals, and if you added them up in terms of where they were scored from, you'd barely reach the edge of the 6-yard box. So not a lot you can do there. The third one's deflected, and you're already on deck diving the way it was going initially, and you've pulled off the save you've been asked to make apart from that. So as a goalkeeper watching on, it must be a night where you look back and think, well, I haven't really been tested that often, apart from picking the ball out of the back of the net.
Yeah, it's frustrating, obviously, to concede goals, and obviously to concede three is really frustrating, especially, like you say, when there's not really much chance that I've got to stop any of them or affect the game in any way. I think any goalie like in a game like that is just, there's not much you can do. It doesn't matter if you're a top level keeper or a keeper who plays Sunday League. Them goals like that, there's nothing you can do to affect them, and it's obviously frustrating because I think as a goalkeeper, if you're playing outfield, you can run around, affect the game a lot more than you can as a goalkeeper. Obviously, there is some proactive decisions you can make as a keeper, but a lot of the game is reactive, and sometimes if you can't react or there's no way you being able to affect the game, then it can be tough.
Liam, although it's a 3-0 defeat on paper, moving into Saturday, how much confidence can Rovers take from the first 30-35 minutes at the University of Bolton Stadium? Because there were chances created, there was certainly space for them, and it showed that there's probably a bit more team cohesion in that period than what Rovers have seen for the majority of the campaign so far.
I thought they were excellent in that first 30 minutes. That kind of tenacity in midfield through the likes of Ethan Galbraith, Matt Smith, nipping in, getting the ball away, moving it on quickly, always thinking front foot. Aidan Barlow did really well as well. He was very, he seemed to relish having that space to run into, that space to play into. Some really, really good stuff. And that mindset was just perfect. Get it forward quickly. It was a very open game. You're probably not going to have an opposition quite as open as Bolton on too many occasions, but I think there were certainly elements to it for me that should be taken forward into every away performance that comes up. That quick counter that could do when pinching the ball away in midfield. Really, really good stuff, and Rover should be looking to do plenty more of that.
Of course, Burton themselves come into the game on the back of a brilliant victory over Accrington in midweek, but prior to that, they'd hit a bit of a stumbling block, hadn't they, after a positive start. But it's worth remembering, Liam, as Richie Wellens has touched on a couple of times, just where Burton were 12 months ago, and the fact that Rovers can take heart from that, and that it's not all doom and gloom if you're down the bottom in November, December. It matters about where you are in April and May.
I remember going to Burton in December, I think it were last season, and thinking that there's no chance of them surviving. They are no. They were the far and away the worst team that you'd seen, and just didn't look to be any hope for them whatsoever. But it were a remarkable second half of the season, and as you say, it does just show what you can produce once you get a bit of forward momentum, and that's what Rovers are looking to build right now.
Lewis, when you're going up against a team who've obviously won 4-0 on Tuesday night, but in the same sense they're in mid-table for a reason, there is clearly that inconsistency. I suppose in the team meetings beforehand, you've just got to make sure that you bang on it, haven't you? And when there are any lapses in concentration for them, which you would think will be there at times, you've got to take advantage.
Yeah, we prepare for every game the same anyway, regardless of who the opposition is. Obviously, we've looked at Burton and we know that they're a very direct side. They cover probably up there with the most distance in terms of like each player, how far they're running per game. So we know first and foremost that if we're going to get anywhere in the game, that we've got to at least match them in that aspect. And then hopefully, our quality will shine through and we'll be able to put our stamp on the game.
It's a slightly different type of venue, isn't it, as well, to what you get at Bolton on Tuesday and then Burton on Saturday. It shows what's in this league, doesn't it? You can go from one extreme to the other very quickly.
Yeah, and Burton's pitch is quite tight as well, I think, and obviously that's something that they've probably thought about because it suits them. They want to be in your face, physical, aggressive, pressing. But like I say, if we can match them in terms of work rate and desire, which is a given in every game, we should be able to then stick to our game plan and put our stamp on it.
A lot of new signings have come in, Liam, at Burton since Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank returned to the club. Looking at the front three of Smith, Jebison and Hemmings, they've certainly got some firepower up there. Of course, Jebison became Sheffield United's youngest ever scorer at Premier League level last season. Rovers were obviously interested in him in the summer. I don't think there's any secret of that. But when you've got three players all capable of scoring goals, it means that you're in any game.
Certainly are. And those options, as you say, having three is fantastic. Rovers haven't had those options with injuries and availability. It can take you a long way, and we've seen probably a few times this season, or certainly in the last couple of months, where having those extra options to come on or these options in reserve would have made a massive difference to Rovers. It's a good front line that Burton have got. Obviously, Jebison very, very highly rated. They're still talking about sort of multi-million-pound offers for him coming in and being discussed. So that's a quality and potential that he's got. But hopefully Rovers can keep him quiet, because as we've seen from Rovers in recent weeks, they're looking harder to beat. I thought, given the tremendous amount of pressure that we're under in the second half, Bolton camped in the Rovers half so much. I thought they defended really well. And again, continue that being resolute, and it'll stand them in good stead.
Of course, Joseph Oluwu's appeal rejected on Thursday. Make of that what you will. Everybody's seen the challenge, and I think we'll have their own opinion on it. It now looks like Tommy Rowe will play alongside Tom Anderson again as a makeshift centre-half. He's certainly done well in there, hasn't he, against Bolton in the second half, or towards the end of the first half and the second half, as well as Scunthorpe in the Cup. Do you think it'll be a slightly different proposition coming up against Burton at the weekend?
I think there's that directness, that physicality that you're going to come up with. It's going to certainly ask questions of him. He's going to have to be very disciplined. It was interesting talking to Tom Anderson and asking what it was like playing alongside Tommy Rowe. And he said, you have to rein him in a little bit. He's got that left back's head on of trying to get forward. And he said, well, hang on a minute, Tommy. Make sure you're sticking and do what you needed to do. But I think he's been excellent in those two games. There were a bit of directness against Scunthorpe that'll kind of stand him in good stead as he goes into this one, but it is going to be a very, very tricky one.
Lewis, when on Tuesday you were playing behind Tommy and he's not a natural centre-half, is it sort of subconsciously in your head to talk that little bit more to him and guide him around? Because as Liam said, if he's used to being at left back, it's usually just the right shoulder he'd have to be looking over. But when you move inside one, it doesn't seem like a massive move, but all of a sudden you've got to check both shoulders more often.
Yeah, I think obviously as a goalie you can help him because obviously I can see the full pitch, so I can help him a lot with things behind him and help him out with his positioning. But Rowe's a very intelligent football player, as you can tell, because he can play near enough every position if required. And I think like he probably won't struggle with the directness, because I think you've seen how good he is winning headers. If he plays left back, we're targeting him from long goal kicks for us. If he's playing centre mid, we move him wide, we kick to him. So I don't think the directness is strong. He wins his headers, so I don't think that's something that he'll struggle with. But like you say, the keepers and Tom, we can all help him positionally and being more aware of what's around him.
Liam, it is a little bit frustrating though, isn't it? We'd finally started to see him used in a more attacking role in that midfield, and we know what sort of player he can be when he's in there, particularly with the likes of Galbraith and Smith around him, and of course, hopefully Ben Close returning at the weekend as well. And now he's all of a sudden back out of that position again and having to fill in elsewhere.
Yeah, it's funny. So it's just not every time there's something. Like he got the injury himself, didn't he? In that game, the first game where he was pushed back higher up the pitch when Brandon Norton came into the team. Joseph Holloway came into the team at left back. Yeah, he don't seem to be getting a good run of things and a real chance to establish himself in that midfield area. But we know he will play anywhere, and we've seen whether it's from left back or wherever. He's been that goal threat. He's been a very talismanic player for Rovers this season, and wherever he is on the pitch, he will have a tremendous amount of influence.
Just finally then, Liam, of course, Saturday's another game that you don't want to tick by with no points in the bag. Rovers, the gap between themselves and safety is still 4 points. There's a handful of teams above them in mixed form, aren't they? A couple got results on Tuesday. A couple are still looking over their shoulders very nervously. It's Rovers' last league game for 10 days. There's another break with cup competitions taking place. How big is this one on Saturday, in your opinion?
It's really big. It's been so kind of frustrating as a season in terms of that. Rovers have been desperate at trying to build momentum all season, really. But not only, obviously, struggles in certain games and things like that, just not being able to string league matches together, because there's always been something, whether it's an international break, a cup weekend or whatever. It's really frustrating, but you don't want to be going in and then having to start from scratch in a couple of weeks' time. So it is a big one. As you said, they can't afford to keep by. They've had a disappointing result in midweek. Need to pick up points as much as possible. And it's a game that's certainly there for the taking if they approach it in the right manner.
Is tomorrow the day then, do you feel, for the first 3 points on the road this season?
I think it could be. I was confident going to Bolton on Tuesday. I'm usually quite confident anyway, but I think it could be. I think Burton have shown that, they're certainly not sort of steamrolling people out of the way in the way they were in the second half of last season. It's been very inconsistent, So yeah, I don't see any reason why not.